Thank you for joining us again. Today we are looking into the major differences between the book Wool and the Apple Plus television show Silo. There are three major things the television show got wrong with episode 1, Freedom Day, as opposed to the book Wool, and you should know this. Number 1, the number of attempts Halston and Allison had with conceiving. Number 2, the fear of judicial, and 3, the sheriff's assistant. Of course, there are several minor things you should know as well, and we'll start there. First, Freedom Day focuses mostly on Halston's wife, Allison. In truth, most of the book referred to her only as a passing thought. Those thoughts were mostly from the perspective of Halston and Juliet. This is considered minor because it doesn't change the story at all. It only attempts to give background to help the audience understand what leads Halston to, in effect, commit suicide. Spoiler alert, from this moment on, if you haven't watched Silo on Apple Plus, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification button, then watch it. Jesus! Halston didn't think he was committing suicide. He thought people in the silo were lying to them and wanted to prove them wrong. Second minor issue was the woman who tried to convince them of silly superstitions. In truth, her role in the book was only passing. In the television show, this character helped to form a truer seed of doubt in the mind of Allison about Silo. Minor issue with Silo and the book Wool is the connection between Allison, Halston's wife, and Juliet Nichols' boyfriend, George Wilkins. While the book indeed describes the fact that the two talked, it did not, however, go into detail about the two of them working together to unearth anything. Instead, the book was happy to have its readers believe that Allison was headstrong and figured certain things out all on her own. Again, this is considered minor because it does not fundamentally alter the story. However, it undermines elements of Allison's agency. The television show wants us to believe that were it not for George, Allison never would have looked so hard into the operations of Silo. Minor issues and major issues are divided based upon whether the story told in the television show would ultimately change the direction of the storytelling. Whether something is minor or major is subjective, so write a comment and give your thoughts about them. Before we get into the major issues, please do us the honor of subscribing to this channel, like the video, and click to receive notifications. It doesn't hurt anyone, and we really need more subscribers. Major issue number 1. In episode 1, Freedom Day, the television show could not know whether those who watched the series would ever or have ever read the book. Instead, they needed a device to clearly show how desperate Allison and Halston were to have a child. In chapter 1 of the book, it states that Halston still carries the lottery ticket or their opportunity to conceive a child within 365 days in his wallet. There was no other mention of them attempting 2 times prior to this. Why is this considered major? The book Wool did a nice job of explaining how people would first have to petition to marry, then wait for the lottery to be approved to conceive a child. While these elements are eventually explained later in the series, it's possible the writers of Silo wanted the trigger of not being able to conceive to be the spark to lead Allison down the path. In truth, the book took great pains to show that Allison was precocious and curious. Major issue number 2. There's a palpable fear of judicial. In the book Wool, the citizens of the silo had a fear of IT. In fact, there are only passing mentions of judicial. This is major because now there are at least 2 players to contend with, IT and judicial. For instance, the character of Robert Sims, played by Common, does not appear in Wool. No doubt, this is to add to the tension while still adding to the build-up seen on screen. Throughout the book, IT controlled all major aspects of their society, whether directly or indirectly. This new foil allows watchers of the show to always be just a bit in the dark. Major issue number 3. The sheriff's assistant did not exist in the book. In fact, the sheriff didn't have his own office. The sheriff's desk was right next to Marnes's desk. Sandy is highly devoted to Halston and mourns. Though she is devoted to both men, neither of them confides in her, either due to lack of trust, but most likely due to protect her from Judicial. In episode 1, it is not clear how she will be important to the story, but what we should know is that anytime a new character is introduced into a well-known piece of literature, their role will be important to whatever other changes have been made. But the major issue we need to ponder is whether the book or the show did it better. With respect to minor issues, focusing on Allison in the first episode was a great idea. Rashida Jones was excellent as Allison and actually added to the lore of the character. The book never spoke from the perspective of Allison, so we never get a sense of her or her thinking. We knew she wanted kids, maybe even twins. Also, by adding her character, the show is able to make other connections to characters later on. Verdict: the show did it better. With respect to the minor character who offers superstitions, at first glance, it would have been a clear verdict of swimmingly underwhelming. However, this character was the first character to open Allison's eyes to what Judicial is doing. It later led to Allison cutting out her additional implant, making it impossible for her to conceive. While the book also brought in this same information, the book very clearly led us to believe Allison was so curious that it led her to investigate for herself that there was another implant. She believed this to be true based on her research found within the pact. Verdict: the show did it better. With respect to Allison's association with George Wilkins, at least at present, it does not seem necessary. Juliet's relationship with George would have sufficed. Linking the two characters could have led viewers to believe other factors were amiss. While that might have been a good thing, adding suspense, again, Juliet's character could have unearthed information in either direction. Verdict: the book does it better. With respect to the number of attempts Allison and Halston tried to conceive, there is no other verdict than a miss. The book does it better. With respect to their fear to Judicial, this is a great ploy, having viewers look at one hand without noticing what the other hand is doing. The fear people have with Judicial is near paranoia level, similar to what existed within the book toward IT. However, this vote only holds if Judicial is the patsy for IT. Verdict: the show does it better. Finally, with respect to the sheriff's assistant, Sandy, while seeing her in episode 1 was cool, episode 1 doesn't yet show her importance to the overall development of the storyline. Verdict: the book does it better. But we deserve the right to change the verdict. We expect plot twists with this character. Thank you for joining us. If you like what you're hearing and want more, like, comment, subscribe, and get our notifications. Until next time.